The Showpony. What's she doing that close to the operations tent? Someone move her back to supply? The voice was sharp, impatient. A junior officer trying too hard to sound in charge. But whatever annoyance he felt vanished the moment the radio crackled to life static. Then a voice, cold and foreign. We're hunting Spectre 6. We know she's in your sector. Confirm if she's active. The room froze. Eyes snapped toward the edge of the tent, where she'd been standing just moments ago. But she was gone. Who was she? Really, and why would an enemy frequency agitated, armed, and unprompted call out a name no one at Fort Greystone had spoken in years? Her file read Evelyn Shaw, age 36, logistics and supply technician, posted to Greystone's West compound, her day job managing inventory ledgers, logging rations, coordinating drop schedules, always on time, always quiet, just another cog in the background. People called her Showpony. The name started off as a joke. Someone once said she looked too polished for base grunt work. Neatly pressed uniform, tight bun, eyes that didn't blink when sergeants barked. She looked like someone assigned to a podium, not a loading dock. So they called her that Showpony. Pretty, precise, and according to most, useless. She never corrected them, never laughed, never snapped back, just went about her tasks with a kind of robotic calm. Early mornings, tight routines, no chatter. Even her coffee runs felt tactical. But now and then, someone noticed something off, like how she always dropped crates exactly where they'd be needed before anyone even called it in. Medkits, ammo, comm gear positioned with intention, like a field exercise, like she was prepping for battle. Some of the older NCOs caught it. That's not guesswork. One muttered, that's training. Maybe she used to run point somewhere. Another said, or maybe we're the ones who've forgotten what real experience looks like. Still, the younger guys laughed behind her back. She's hiding in logistics. They'd whisper, probably flunked out of something tougher. She heard every word, every fake ma'am, every sideways glance in the chow line. She just dipped her head, kept her hands busy, and walked on. Until the day she was called by accident into the main briefing room. A wrong folder, a wrong name, the right moment. The officer looked up, visibly annoyed. Why are you in here? His voice cut through the room like a slap. Who cleared support staff into a Tier 1 planning session? Heads turned, a few smirks, a few snickers. Most just avoided her eyes. Evelyn didn't argue. She offered a quiet apology, turned, and walked out. But as she left, something in her gaze flickered sharp, cold, practiced. Not one person in that room knew what they'd just done. They hadn't embarrassed a logistics worker. Evelyn Shaw hadn't always worn silence like armor. Once, her voice commanded strike teams in enemy territory. Her name Spectre 6 carried weight in rooms lit only by red tactical lamps. She didn't push papers. She pushed through walls, led under fire, pulled lives out of hell. But one mission unraveled everything. Operation Dustlight. It was supposed to be clean. In and out. Hostages in the Helix Badlands. But the intel had been doctored. The drop zone was a trap. Comms jammed. Exfil route burned. Enemy snipers already in position. Her team's Sable V fought like demons, but it wasn't enough. She watched her second-in-command bleed out trying to protect a mother and child. Another teammate refused evac, choosing to buy time instead. By the time the sun came up, the hostages were gone, safe. Her team gone too. She walked out alone, covered in ash, her vest soaked with blood that wasn't hers. When the debrief team asked what happened, she gave them one sentence: all lives lost. My call, responsibility mine. No excuses, no plea. She left everything behind that day: rank, reputation, even her name. She didn't want reassignment, didn't want therapy. She didn't want to be seen, so she vanished. Fort Greystone was perfect for that, tucked deep in the Whitestone Range. It was the kind of posting nobody volunteered for. Half supply chain hub, Half-forgotten outpost. Routine. Isolated. The kind of place ghosts could live quietly. There. She let Evelyn Shaw fade. She became the show pony, the clipboard, the background. It wasn't punishment. It was penance. If she couldn't bring her team back, she could at least make sure others had what they needed to survive. Every crate she packed, every kit she logged, it all meant someone else might not have to die for her mistakes. She told herself she didn't deserve a second command, didn't deserve trust, and definitely didn't deserve to forget. Sometimes at night, she'd wake with her fists clenched, shoulder tense like she was still holding her rifle. Other nights, she'd stand alone under the moonlight near the motor pool, eyes scanning shadows that didn't move just to remind herself what it felt like to watch, to guard. She thought maybe this quiet life would dull the ache, that the shame would get lighter over time. But grief doesn't fade. It settles, in the joints, in the back of your throat, in the stillness between footsteps. No one at Greystone asked about her past, and that was exactly how she wanted it. Because if they had looked too long, if someone had truly seen her, they might have recognized the war hadn't left her. It had just gone quiet. And Evelyn, she wasn't done fighting. She was just fighting herself. She left no note, no briefing, no permission. She simply disappeared from Fort Greystone under the cover of night-faded rucksack, old field boots, and a silence that held more weight than orders. By the time the rescue team mobilized, she was already gone, 15 miles northeast, in the canyon basin known as Echo7 Pass. Gunfire still cracked through darkness. A recon unit had walked straight into an ambush radio down. Flares expired, no evac possible. But not all signals need words. Evelyn moved like smoke through the terrain. The night cloaked her like it remembered her shape. Every step hit ground without echo. Every pause held breath and tension. She scaled a ridge in near silence, spotted 3 enemy scouts flanking the last boulder where U.S. boots still stood. Then motion. A figure crawled from cover, dragging a bleeding comrade. Helmet knocked sideways, blood along the shoulder strap. She lifted her rifle, paused. Her eyes locked onto the face beneath the fractured visor. Dorn, the same lieutenant who'd smirked, who'd laughed, who'd scribbled Showpony across her locker just 2 weeks ago. A breath caught in her throat, but it wasn't anger. It was memory. Dustlight, screams. Tyler's voice cutting out mid-transmission. Monica's last flash of teeth before the blast. And then silence. But this wasn't Dustlight, and he wasn't the enemy. She didn't hesitate. The shot dropped the scout nearest to him. A second. Faster. Third gone before he raised his weapon. Evelyn slid down the slope, grabbed Dorn by the plate carrier, and dragged him into the blind curve. "Stay down," she whispered. He stared up at her, eyes wide, jaw unhinged, bloody glove gripping her arm like he wasn't sure she was real. "You," he breathed. "You're..." She shook her head once. "Move when I tell you, nothing before." Behind them, the rest of the ambush fell apart with terrifying precision. She laid down suppressive fire with fluid expertise. Her transitions were seamless, like the weapon knew her fingers. Minutes later, reinforcements crested the ridge. By the time they arrived, it was over. The unit was intact, casualties minimal, and just before evac, someone caught an intercepted enemy chatter. "All units fall back. Spectre 6 is active. I repeat, Spectre 6 is on the ground." The words froze every soldier who heard them. A few turned toward Dorn, still sitting, still stunned. He didn't speak. He just watched the silhouette disappearing into the trees. Not a word, not a medal, just the ghost walking away. They found her 3 hours later, not at the barracks, not in the infirmary, but sitting alone near the southern ridge, wiping mud off her boots like she'd just come back from a routine errand. She didn't fight when they brought her in, didn't ask why. She knew. Inside the operations office, Colonel Hayes stood behind his desk, full uniform, expression carved from granite. He didn't speak right away, just looked at her, truly looked. Then, without a word, he saluted, not protocol, not obligation, The kind of salute reserved for the ones who bleed and don't ask for thanks. Commander Evelyn Shaw, he said quietly. Call sign Spectre 6, Shadowline Division, Sable V. We owe you an apology. She didn't blink, didn't nod. She just kept her eyes on the horizon beyond the window. Her silence said what words couldn't. You forgot who I was? You never even tried to know. The colonel stepped forward. For 3 years, he said. We thought you were gone. Operation Dustlight, your team. She finally looked up. Dustlight was my failure, she said, voice low but steady. 12 lives lost, under my command. No, the colonel said. You were betrayed. He tapped a dossier, thick, red-sealed, still warm from declassification. New intel shows someone inside our own comnet tipped Vassar's men. The exfil wasn't compromised by luck. It was bought. Evelyn didn't speak, but something shifted behind her eyes like a storm rising beneath still water. You stayed hidden to carry the weight, he said, but none of it was yours to bear. Then came a knock. The door creaked open, and secondly Mardorn stepped in. The same man she'd pulled out of the dirt 12 hours earlier. His arm was bandaged, his posture stiff. He looked like someone standing at a funeral he didn't deserve to attend. Ma'am, he began. I didn't know. We didn't know. His voice cracked. The jokes, the names, calling you Showpony. He swallowed. We thought we were mocking someone soft. Turns out, we were laughing at the one person who could have saved us all. She watched him, not with anger, but with that same impossible stillness she'd worn on the battlefield. Then, softly, next time you don't know someone's story, Lieutenant, ask where they've been, not what they do. He nodded, eyes full of something new. Not pity, not fear, respect. Real respect. The kind that doesn't come from rank or medals. The kind you earn when someone saves your life and doesn't rub it in your face. She turned to leave, but the colonel stopped her. There's something else, he said. Enemy chatter says Vassar's gone dark, pulled out of 2 sectors overnight, left behind encrypted gear. Even personnel just vanished. He looked at her with something like awe. Whatever happened out there? You didn't just rescue a team. He paused. You reminded the enemy who they were up against. She gave the faintest nod. Good, she said. Maybe next time. They'll think twice. They'd tried to humiliate a ghost with a call sign still feared in enemy radio chatter. A ghost who might not stay silent much longer. The next morning, something was different at Fort Greystone. Subtle, but unmistakable. It wasn't the sunrise, though it came golden and clean across the Whitestone peaks. It wasn't the air, though it carried something lighter than usual. It was the Patch, waiting at her usual seat in the mess hall. Black fabric, gold thread, embroidered in silence by hands that once sneered. Sable V, Shadowline Division, CMDR. Evelyn Shaw, Spectre 6. No ceremony, no announcement, just a quiet symbol left by soldiers who had finally learned to see. LeRae Dorn stood nearby, awkward in a way only honesty allows. Ma'am, he said, voice careful. We thought, maybe you should wear what actually fits. She ran a thumb across the stitching. It felt heavier than armor, and somehow home. He cleared his throat. We were also wondering. If you'd consider training us, not just drills, the real stuff, the kind they don't teach in manuals. She looked at him, at the row of young faces behind him, the ones who used to joke, now standing straighter, listening harder, and for the first time in years. Evelyn Shaw smiled, not the polite kind, a real one, quiet, earned. Euro 600, she said. Bring your gear and your questions. We've got work ahead. Word spread fast. By week's end, Greystone's barracks were full of soldiers rising earlier, listening sharper, learning more than they ever had. Not just tactics. They learned how to read the air, how to move with purpose, how to lead without shouting, and perhaps most importantly, how to recognize the unseen giants walking among them. Enemy chatter in the region dropped. Tarek Vasir rerouted all ops out of the sector, not because of reinforcements, but because of a single call sign he didn't want to hear again. Spectre 6. One evening, Evelyn stood at the fence line, watching twilight settle like dust over the ridgeline. Dorn stepped beside her. "Ma'am," he asked, "do you ever regret coming back?" She didn't answer right away. Then for a long time, "I thought disappearing was how you heal. But I was wrong." She turned toward him, eyes clear. "Some stories only stop hurting when you stop hiding them." He nodded, and somewhere in the silence between them, a new chapter began.